I'm Stephanie, and I have been married to Andy for 19 years. And I have 3 children, and he has 2. We're a blended family. My kids are 31, 28, and 23, and his kids are 28 and 27. I'm a realtor now in my new old age. I had a business for 15 years, a gift and a home accessory business with a partner, and that was a lot of fun. I miss it, but I love real estate. As a caregiver with Andy dealing with his pain, it's hard because my biggest concern has always been his reliance on prescription medication. And I saw how it was affecting him in his conversations, in our relationships with other friends, within our family. He's the president of a logistics transportation company, and he has tenure and experience forever in that business. And he's well respected, but I was watching that start to diminish, and his response to that killed me because he wouldn't take ownership. I have never really dealt with pain, and it's hard to be compassionate if you don't have that experience of it. We would have fights before we would go out because all of a sudden it would be a social situation, a dinner, a party, an event, something going on. He'd have to take 3-hour naps before he could get there. Then he would wake up and he wouldn't want to go, and you started to see a pattern there. And then I wanted him to buck up and do something about it. Well, let's go see the doctor. And it was very scary for him because his first surgery that he had before I knew him, it was for a slipped disc in his neck. And this is when they used to do it when you're in the cage and you're bent, so it was easy access. They don't do that anymore because an air embolism went through his heart. He had a heart attack, and he sustained further nerve damage where his hands are atrophied and fire in his arms. And then he had lower back surgery, which didn't help. He had the steroid injections with epidurals. He had an ablation where they burned the nerves. Nothing helped. How did I learn how to cope with this pain? I don't think I did cope. I learned a little bit. I got busier. I didn't want to deal with it because I'm more relational, and I like people around me, and I love my friends, I love my family, I love my husband, I love everybody. And for me to sit on a couch, if I watched one more TV show, I was going to implode because that's not who I am. And I saw anger starting to come into somebody who wasn't angry. I was bitter. But now when I look back, I see that. In the moment of it, even though it's not too far long ago, I don't think if you said, wow, you're really angry and bitter, I am not. I would have denied it because I didn't want to be that person. I wanted to help him do something about it. Exercise, swim, there's no pressure on that. Walk, go to the gym, let's see a physical therapist. You know, I can't just sit there and not do anything. That's really hard for me. And the more I pushed, the more he pushed away because it was too painful. Because when you're in pain, it's really hard to be motivated. It's hard to be engaged. It's hard to be in your life. It really is. And all he could do was work because that was kind of non-negotiable. Work was it. Pain medication is a complicated issue, and it's so layered. I had a root canal recently. I woke up at 11:30 and I thought somebody was picking me up by an ice pick. I was shocked how fast that was. So of course I leaned to my medicine man. I think it was Vicodin and then another one. And then he gave me a Xanax. You got to calm down. You just got to try to go to sleep. Well, that didn't work. So about an hour and a half later, I said, I have to go to the emergency room. And I have a pretty high pain tolerance. So they gave me an Oxycontin. After that, I was out. For 2 weeks, I was taken out of my life. I thought, if I had that, and those barely touched it, can you imagine how he was? But I wanted him to try to find alternative forms, whether it was acupuncture or yoga or, I don't know, something, just try. It's really hard to get inside somebody else's body and understand where they're coming from. That whole tooth thing, that was a big wake-up call for me on understanding pain. His mom, who was 87, 86 at the time, feisty, love her, and she was going to get surgery on her neck. So they found this doctor, and this very well-known hospital. I went with her because I was concerned that they weren't asking the right questions, and I just wanted to be there to hear. And I saw this doctor talk, and he spent so much time with her and was so good to her. In the moment, I'm like, this is Andy's doctor. And so I came home and I said, so then he goes, well, you set it up and you do this. And because just the energy to do that is huge. And I finally am like, all right, I will. So I made him an appointment. We got his MRIs, his scans over there. The doctor looked at him and he got to take another look. And he said, I think I can help you. And I just burst into tears. I just thought, if this man can help him. But I wanted to be careful that it was not another, okay, we'll give it a try. There's always a chance it's not going to be successful. And it was pretty aggressive surgery. The team that was there was like this international team of beautiful people. These anesthesiologists, and he had a vascular surgeon come in because they went in through the front. So they didn't disturb a lot of the arteries and the nerves, and there's less cutting that way. And they put cadaver bone in through that way, sewed him up, incision this big, turned him over, another incision, as the doctor said, to put in the hardware. So the screws and the rods and the pins and his nerves were all jumbled, and it was like a 9-hour surgery. We were there for about 2 weeks. We had to be there a little longer because in the initial incision, they had found a hernia, so they just cut up a little higher, took care of the hernia, which caused huge post-surgical complications. He looked like he was 20 months pregnant. It was painful, and another doctor had to come in, and that took some time, and he was restless and anxious and just wanted to feel better. When you're in a caregiving situation, or especially a hospital environment, you can go stir crazy because the patient is being cared for in IVs and medication and monitored and taken care of. But I knew what was ahead of me. It was all starting to be laid out. When we went home, it was about 2.5 weeks later. It's right around the holidays. They have home health care, physical therapy, occupational therapy, but they just come in for an hour. A nanosecond was what it seemed to me. And I just had to learn to be patient again. I'm going to be focused on Andy. He was pretty brave to go through that surgery, I thought. And so I've got to walk with him in this. I have to mirror that because we're a team. And I'm really trying to reevaluate and get back on board. I tried to do everything, but the middle of the night when you have to get up and go to the bathroom or the bedpan, and I'm like, oh, that's hard. It's really hard. You feel bad for saying that's hard because there's basic bodily functions that need to be taken care of. He can't do it. And I'm thinking, oh, fast forward 20 years, what am I doing? And then I thought, if something happened to me, he would be doing the same for me. So you have to measure yourself. You have to keep it in perspective. There's a new thing that I'm doing, it's called gratitude. And you always find something to be grateful for because there's no lack in gratitude. I think doctors need to prepare you better for post-surgical issues. And I know everybody's different and everybody heals differently and progresses differently, but we're at the 2-month mark, the 3-month mark, when he was supposed to be doing a lot better and he wasn't. He had taken spills, he'd fallen, I thought he's ruined the surgery, and he would go to the doctor for a checkup and he goes, Andy, you're doing great, you're right where you should be. But that 2 to 3 months turned into 6 to 7 months. And he started physical therapy. And the doctor said, you're ready to start, but it took 6 months. And once he started physical therapy, he started to feel a little better, get the blood moving. There were baby steps, but I started seeing a noticeable difference in him. So I started to see the light at the end of the tunnel. So I was so excited. He was walking with me. Part of his physical therapy was a stationary recumbent bike. Well, he has a recumbent bike. I'm like, go ride your bike. Because we live in a pretty flat area. Just ride it. Well, I walked behind him with the dogs and then he get the confidence and he goes, okay, it hurts, but it doesn't hurt more. And we just started evolving. It took a lot longer than we thought for him to feel some sense of success with the surgery. Where our physical relationship it was concerned, it was obviously medication and prescription medication. It affects your performance. It affects your staying power. It affects your presence, just being present in the moment, or even being creative, because there's kind of just one or two ways to do it with a back problem. I was all right with that, but then what was interesting is he started getting frustrated because that was all we could do, that certain position or that certain way, and it was like rote. But it was hard, because then the more it got boring, and to him especially, the more he got frustrated. We just passed the year point right around Christmas, and he was doing so much better. Other friends were starting to notice, like, Andy's back. There's the Andy we knew we loved. There he is. So it's been a year and 2 months, and he's excited. He's even talking about trying to dive again. I mean, wouldn't that be great? Caregiving is a challenge. You can be a cheerleader, but when you don't get the crowd coming back at you, you kind of lose your motivation there. You kind of get to the basics of food, nutrition, hygiene, then you kind of don't know what else to do. I think it puts a big stress on your marriage. It really does. You almost need somebody else to come in. We didn't have the means to do that, to help. And I think that takes the pressure off. So you can just be there for the kindness and the nurturing and the love, and it's not mixed in with the wiping their rear end or making sure that everything hits where it's supposed to hit, and just your basic hygienic care. It kind of takes the bang out of your buck a little bit. I would say to another caregiver that has been in my situation, just try to be as honest and straight up as I can on what to expect. Well, in my situation, it's been long-term, but when I look back, 6 months isn't really that long for us to see any kind of success. But I would probably say, get some help, align yourself with a few close friends, 1 or 2 or 3, that really love you, that really understand the situation. If you can afford it, try to get somebody in there to give you a break, so you're not so stuck in every single aspect of the recovery. Get somebody to walk alongside you. Life after this back surgery is great, because the one thing I can say is there's hope. Andy has hope. I have hope. I always have hope, but he really has hope. We just recently had a grandchild in August, and his daughter got married in October, and he married them, and it was all about, so many things were going on right at the time where he was feeling better. And I said, we're having a wedding and a baby. Now his daughter's pregnant. Now this year we're having a baby. So we're making plans for our semblance of the future. I mean, how exciting is that?